Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our 8 series version 8.0. Obviously, the really big feature that came with that is new Frame.io access for camera to cloud. We have Michael here from Frame.io. We're very excited for that. He and Paul are going to talk all about it. My spiel that I give every time, make sure you guys are registering your products. It extends your warranty from 1 year to 2 years. That is for all of your Sound Devices products. It also lets you get firmware emails, notifications. Anytime something comes out, you'll be the first to know. I think that's all I have for my opening spiel. So I will turn this over. It's a quick one, man. We've been doing these a year now.
Short and sweet. So yeah, I'm super excited to have Michael Cioni here today from Frame.io. And yeah, welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Paul. Awesome to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm so excited about this whole Frame.io thing. So yeah, let's talk about it. And so Frame.io, has this new invention, and I think this invention is going to set a new standard for production and post-production workflow. And like any invention, it seems like really obvious. It's like like a bicycle or the light bulb or cheeseburgers or something like that. So it just seems like near real-time cloud delivery and post-production type workflows. Why hasn't this been done before?
It's a great question. And, I actually worked on the movie The Social Network, and this was 10 years ago. That came out in October of 2010. And after that movie, the director was like, why can't we just shoot takes right to my iPad so I can just watch them on the iPad? And that's actually when we started building this concept of camera to cloud back in 2010. And I have like photos of us doing that, but here's why it didn't work. Why didn't we hear about it back then? Well, there's a couple of big hurdles. One, AWS hadn't been a product that you could leverage and get into. So there wasn't a ubiquitous cloud storage system that had a backend that was universal and international. So that's a big need, right? So that didn't exist. Second, LTE was brand new. We were on 3G in 2010 and 4G was brand new. And so 3G wasn't capable of transmitting assets of this size. And so there was no way to do that. So that was the second problem. And then the third problem was security. There wasn't the robustness of security guidance and guidelines and processes that had been adopted and ratified back in 2010. It was still pretty new. And so you had to let the security, the telecommunications network, and the cloud storage network all sort of mature. And then companies like Frame.io were born. Frame.io was born in 2015, and it's basically a front-end beautiful way to interact with things. All of us have had some sort of Dropbox or Google Cloud or iCloud storage, but what Frame.io is a front end with interaction of video and audio assets. It's a post-production and production version of Dropbox, right? And you needed that maturity to come along. And so it took a decade for all of these stars to align. And actually a year and a half ago, we reached out to you and we said, This is the roadmap. And now all the stuff's going to be there in place.
So why did you reach out to us? I mean, what made you think, let's contact Sound Devices about there's other audio manufacturers out there?
Yeah, well, I used to own a post-production company called Light Iron, and I have been a post-production CEO for a long time. And when I was in post, our bread and butter was dailies. We made a lot of money in dailies. Sure, we did DI, but the secret about post-production is DI doesn't make you money. It costs you money. But dailies is where your high ROI is. And when we would get all this footage from the set, we found that Sound Devices productions that were using that had better timecode reliability. The file naming was better. The scene and take metadata was better. The sound reports were cleaner and better. And the quality of the audio was like audibly improved. And so we started to realize that when a production used Sound Devices, this took years for me to sort of puzzle through, like, oh, these are better. This is a better experience for the dailies. Now we love all our children equally. Whatever somebody recorded audio with, it's fine. It's up to them. But we noticed that Sound Devices was providing better interaction with the post-production process. And so it became the gold standard in my eyes and in my team's eyes. And so when we decided, I'll be honest, we reached out to you first. You were the only people we reached out to. And you also had thought ahead with the Dante port. So you were already engineering for this and you didn't even know it yet. And that's when happy accidents happen. Good.
I did. I do have a confession to make. We did already know it.
Yeah, you did.
But we just didn't know how we were going to make it happen.
I think that was your word. You're like,
so,
we knew we wanted to do this. We wanted
as I've said to you many times, Michael, you know, when you reached out to us, I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is it. Because I've been thinking about exactly the same thing for many, many years. And, you know, it was all just a pipe dream, you know, uploading to the cloud, you know, why hand over physical media? It just seems, but for all the reasons you've already stated, the technology wasn't mature enough or fast enough, or all those different elements hadn't come together. And so when you reached out to us and you gave me the spiel, and it was like, wow, this could really be a possibility. It was super exciting. Now, yes, when we designed the 8 series, we did put an Ethernet port on that, and the primary purpose was for Dante. But we always knew the 8 series was intended to have a long lifetime, you know, a couple of decades product life cycle. And we knew things were going to change in the industry. So we wanted to put the hooks in there at the very start. Should the industry enable us to upload to the cloud, it's ready and waiting. So then you came along, and through over a year's worth of development, we finally got there, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, and we were so thrilled. And you're right. You actually said, you've said several times, we've been wanting this for 10 years, and we just needed this technology to catch up. And we've been the same. And I am just so thrilled that our two pathways intersected right at the right moment. And the year 2020 actually was a remarkable opportunity for us to leverage this work from home and remote technologies and integration. And we did it in spite of the pandemic, which is just another level of the commitment and the success story behind it.
So let's talk about some use cases, typical use cases. Number one, what do you reckon?
Well, the first thing is we are not advocating that you don't download and provide things on hard drives. That is absolutely still necessary. But the problem is that hard drive where you have the picture and the sound coming together, well, there's a couple of cadence issues with that. A lot of times a picture is downloading every magazine. That can be every hour, every couple of hours. But audio doesn't want to pull out an SD card every hour, every couple of hours. It's a lot more disruptive. It's very annoying. Even though the audio transfer process can be measured in seconds for a day's worth of work, it's still a nuisance and it's still a rhythm breaker. And so what this does, the first use case, is it allows your audio to go right to the cloud. So there's no need to pull anything out of your device and worry about breaking your rhythm or coordinating with a data manager or something like that. So that's the first, I think, important use case, is considering the rhythm, the way people work. We don't want to break that. In fact, we want to make it we want to make it more transparent. We want to make it more invisible to having to worry about when you transfer.
And I think one of the key points there is that the material is being uploaded as soon as you hit that stop button, and it doesn't allow you to continue shooting while that upload is in process. So that is a key part of why the rhythm isn't broken. Yeah, people have been able to on set now transfer stuff to the cloud, but they would have to basically come out of production shoot mode, put their machines into some sort of transfer mode, upload those. So everything would be halting in terms of production, undermining the rhythm. But with this, everything's happening simultaneously, the upload and the shoots. That's important.
Another component to that behavior you just described is that when you do it that way, you actually have more of a fire hose situation, because you've got a bunch of clips in a queue. You're getting ready to put it in a different mode and push it to the cloud. But now you have a lot of media to push to the cloud. When you do camera to cloud with Frame My Own sound devices, it's a trickle. It's more just like a little garden hose trickle instead of a fire hose. Because we all know the dirty little secret about shooting on a set is there's a lot of waiting. There's far more waiting than there is activity generally. And so during that waiting time, your device can be working. So even if you have horrible network connection, like 1/4 bar network connection, that's not an inhibitor, because it can push it in the background, and maybe a take or even an interview is going to take longer to upload, but it's a background task while you're waiting for the next situation. So it's pretty much invisible to the user anyway.
Mm-hmm. So that's one obviously key part of this whole workflow. Let's talk about more of the sort of like once the material is in the cloud, what can Frame.io do with that, and what applications does that really suit well?
So one of our large groups of customers is nonfiction. And in the nonfiction space, people are doing these interviews, an hour, 45 minutes, hour and a half interviews. And in the nonfiction space, it's very common that people do not start the editing process until there is a transcription. And with our audio to cloud solution with Sound Devices, we can publish that AAC or WAV file directly to Frame.io, and you can instantly share it to transcription companies. One of them is called rev.com, which is a popular transcription company, and it is done by humans, so it's actually more accurate than the bots. And it also has a direct integration with Frame.io. So a Frame.io review link, when you click on the asset or a folder of many assets and you hit share, you can share it directly to rev.com. And the transcription process is beginning while the crew's still wrapping. And sound is no longer required to be bothered with where's the files? Did we get them? Can we transmit them? Can you take them home and upload them at home? Like none of that is a factor anymore. It's already happening. And that means the paper edit process can begin with the hero footage still being on a drive. It's probably not even shipped yet.
And someone like rev.com, they can read the time code out of these files, right? So that everything's tied up and in sync on their timeline with a picture, right?
That's absolutely right. We are time code accurate, and we are reading the time code as well in Frame.io. At this moment in time, we're not displaying the time code, but we're reading it, and we're making some updates to the player. But we're reading the time code, which is how we can sync picture and sound together, because we can see it. We can read it in AAC and WAV. And of course, rev.com, all that metadata is passed to rev.com. In fact, all the metadata, all relevant metadata that is transmitted through Sound Devices is actually visible in Frame.io. Samples till midnight, your full sample rate, scene and take information, your project name, all of that is transferred.
So obviously this is all key information, especially when it comes to this whole Insta dailies workflow. Now, do you want to talk about this now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question. You know, how are we going to do dailies in the future? Well, I mentioned that I used to own a post house, and in the post-production world, that was our bread and butter. But in the future, dailies is going to become a pretty automatic process. It's what I call a utilitarian process. And what I mean by that is actually the act of creating dailies generally is not a creative process. It's utilitarian. It's you have to go from step 1 to step 10 or whatever. And you're not really doing a lot of creative work. The only exception would, there's no creative decision on like how to sync audio. It's either in sync or it's not, or what scene and take to name it. It either is correct or it's incorrect. There's no creative license to those steps. And in the future, with AI and automation, it's the utilitarian steps in any industry, including ours, that are going to get taken over by bots and computers and things like that. Automation is going to take over the mundane, non-creative tasks first. And I think dailies is a really obvious example of something that just everyone needs. It needs to happen, and it's not really creatively driven. So automation is going to take that over. And then when you couple that automation with the cloud, all of a sudden you're distributing really, really quickly. So you can run picture and sound with a camera and Sound Devices, and you can have those assets go to the cloud. They find each other. Frame.io automatically finds siblings, pairs them together, syncs them together, renames them, and distributes it automatically.
That is such a huge game-changing process to have that all automated in the cloud. People can focus purely on the creative aspects, which is so key here. So let's talk about some of the other cool integrations that Frame.io has into sort of nonlinear editors and coloring systems, and how that whole part of the process works.
Yeah, the beauty of what Frame.io has been working on for years is integration. See, our company is not based on this vertically integrated, sort of antiquated business model where you do everything and you do it better than anyone else. That's not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to become is a hub. sort of like the glue. And we want to glue together audio, but we want to glue audio and connect audio through our hub into Resolve and Premiere and Final Cut and Avid, right? We don't, by acting as that hub, it means that Avid, for example, or Premiere and sound devices don't have to build their own integration. We've already done that. So anyone that routes through Frame.io, we automatically have already done the authentication, the security, and the transmission based on our mutual APIs and allow a seamless delivery. Now we've connected a sound devices to Adobe Premiere automatically. That's already done. If you record an audio on your 888 or Scorpio today, and you have a Frame.io account, it automatically is dumped into Premiere without having to go to the internet, without having to go to a Dropbox, without having to go to an email notification. It's just there.
It's
That's
great.
the integration that people are going to come to expect. They're going to just say, I just want it to be available to me, and I don't want to have to close out or window over or find out. You just want it in your workspace. And that's exactly what we're doing.
It's so cool to actually be able to get a rough cut with Hero Audio on your phone or tablet or computer from anywhere in the world within like minutes after something's been shot. It's almost like, how the hell did this happen?
You're right. And someone out there, and I'm not picking on anyone, someone out there's going to say, why do we need it that much faster? We've never needed that before. We don't need it that much faster. Well, I hear what you're saying. If that's you, I totally respect that. But there's two answers I have to that. One, the TikTok generation, this new generation, the YouTube generation of people has a new rhythm of the way they work. And think about this. If you come from the YouTube or TikTok generation, you shoot on your phone, you edit on your phone, and you distribute on your phone. So in their mind, they shoot, edit, and share on one device. When they become industry professionals in the motion picture entertainment industry,
that's what they're going to expect.
They're going to carry that expectation, and they're not going to accept, oh, well, you have to wait a day or two before you can hear that. What? No way. I'm just going to use my phone, right? So none of us want them to record audio on phones and picture on phones. What we have to do is make sure that the workflow matches where they came from. So that's one reason why we have to go fast. The second reason is that when you're waiting for something, any form of waiting creates anxiety. And maybe today you say we have an acceptable level of anxiety for the waiting game that we have for dailies today, but it's still anxiety. Somebody, maybe not you, but someone in this production process is terrified until they see and hear what was being captured. That could be an interview with a important political figure, right? That's terrifying if you are responsible for that. Or it could be a shot where they're going to blow up the boat at the end of the movie and they really need to make sure that $2 million day was captured, right? These are the types of things that create anxiety. Waiting for anything, whether you're waiting in line at Disneyland or waiting for cookies in the oven, you're just anxious when you're waiting. And so by reducing the time of waiting, you reduce anxiety, and that makes everybody just a little less on edge. And that's another benefit to this technology. Yeah.
So how many users or productions are using Frame.io at the moment? Is anyone using it?
People are using it. Frame.io has gotten really big in the last couple of years. So right now we have 1.5 million users worldwide.
Wow.
It is the largest review and approval tool on earth by a huge margin. And there are several thousand people a week joining the platform. And the lowest plan, there is a free plan, which audio and camera to cloud are not available for. But any paid plan, the cheapest one is $15 a month. And then it goes up from there based on how many users and how many features you need. But even the $15 a month plan includes this technology. And we're not saying that audio recorders need to own Frame.io accounts. In fact, you can get a free Frame.io account right now. And if you were brought onto a production that was using Frame.io, your free account would allow you to upload to the cloud. But if you want to initiate cloud uploads yourself, then you need to have a paid account. $15 gets you in. But at several thousand people a week joining the program, we are on track to really do a significant takeover of workflow. And because we're integrated with you and we can tie that to an editor, we basically remove that middle step of delivery delay.
So, yeah. So, like anything new, and this is new, and a lot of people are resistant to change. I mean, I personally think this will become the standard. In several years' time, there'll be no physical media handoff. Yes, you'll still have your local backups for any sort of emergencies or failures as redundancy, but I think this almost certainly will become the new standard. Rushes will no longer exist. The word rushes, because I mean, what are you going to rush to? It's already there. So, I mean, is Frame.io in this for the long haul? Because I mean, are you a strong financial company with backing that can take this forward and be around for a long time? If people are going to put their eggs into this basket, you know.
Yes, it's a great question. It's a very fair question, because when you have new companies, it's like, how much do we invest in this, right? People, a mentor once told me, big old companies like big old companies, right? And so it just feels safe, right? But if you've been paying attention the last 10 years, big old companies are starting to go away and new ones are taking over and they're conquering, right? And so Frame.io is one of these entrepreneurial stories. We are backed by some of the biggest people in this space. Frame.io, if you go by the numbers, we measure best in class for a SaaS company. SaaS is software as a service. Our product is software. That's sort of a new category of products over the last decade or 2 decades. And we are best in class for that. And the people that back us backed DocuSign. They backed LinkedIn. They backed lynda.com. They backed products like that have totally taken off. And so when you look at SaaS like Netflix or Hulu or DocuSign or Uber and things like that, you can see that the tech company industry has now got models and they know how to invest in it. They know how to foster it. They know how to grow it. We have a great board of directors that's published on our website. And one of the companies that backs us significantly is called Signalfire. If you look up Signalfire and see who they're behind, you know those brands. They're trusted brands. And these are the people that ensure that we are not only growing at the right rate, but that we're financially supported by the right people. And then we have their input. We have their experience and their knowledge. And so all of that comes together to ensure that Frame.io is here for the long haul.
Right. And what about those users who are a little bit nervous about jumping onto this new platform and like, I'm worried about the security of my files, getting into the wrong hands, the security aspect of it. Talk about that.
Yeah, if you go to frame.io/security, you can find a lot of information about this. But basically, the movie studios have come up with a lot of their own regulations to ensure that content is secure and that it's not up to the companies to generate their own securities. We have to follow ubiquitous rules that are governed by third parties so that everybody is held to the same standard. So that's called the Trusted Partners Network, TPN. So in order to get TPN certified, you have to follow these rules. And then there is a type of security called SOC 2 Type 2 or version 2. And this is the additional level of security auditing that takes place that can be shared. It's published. You can read about it. You can see where things are. And then the last thing we do, and we're TPN certified, we're top SOC 2 Type 2 certified. And then we also pay companies. There are these great companies, it's kind of tricky, but you pay them to hack into your system. And if they hack in, they get paid. If they can't hack in, they don't. So they're financially motivated to hack into your system. And this is a common technique that a lot of SaaS companies use. And hacking companies that are legit hacking companies are paid to try to find vulnerabilities. Mm-hmm. And so we have all of these areas together where all that information is shared. And that's why Frame.io has been certified by the biggest companies in the world. And if you look at our website, you can see the logos that and those logos have a lot to lose if their material is vulnerable. And so Frame.io being audited and approved by some of those major logos represents the level of security that we've been able to achieve through a system that the community has actually generated for itself. So it's Frame.io abiding by the community's rules, not creating our own.
Right. Another thing that's important to our users is, this whole process that we've come up with, as we've been working with you to develop Frame.io support on our end, is the whole redundancy aspect. And, we've already spoken about how there is a local drive still being recorded to. So at the end of the day, if there is a total failure of the internet or the internet gets hacked, all that material is still there. So that is the absolute first level of redundancy. But you've also got things on our recorders that even if there's a power loss or an internet down during upload, we've come up with processes to automatically resume re-upload when things are reconnected again. So we've really thought about all those little details to make the process smooth. So I think for our users, the security, the reliability, and the robustness of the system is already mature. And it'll continue to evolve as Frame.io evolves and adds more features. Actually, this is an interesting thing. I mean, you probably can't talk about any of this now, but do you have like a roadmap for any more features for Frame.io that you're going to wheel out at some point? Or can't you talk, because like us at Sound Devices, we never talk about anything, so don't blame me if you don't talk about anything.
No, I understand. No, you know, one of the things that we talked about was the audio and video syncing. That is in beta. So the audio and video syncing is not happening on your account today. If you have a Frame.io account, you send picture and sound, it will not auto sync, but it's in beta. So if you really want to be a beta tester of the AV sync process, you can reach out and we can always turn that on in your account.
Right.
That's something that is part of our future roadmap that we can demonstrate today. Another thing is live streaming. People want to be able to also pipe into their camera sets and interview sets and actually see and hear what's going on, but live. And so we're adding that later in the year so that you can have your records and your live feeds simultaneously with your same setup. And so that's another area of convenience that people want. And the last thing I'll say that I think is really significant for everyone here listening, if you have zero internet, we talked about poor quality, but what about zero? Well, one of the things that's great about our design, our mutual design, Frame.io and Sound Devices, is that if you have zero internet, you obviously capture everything locally into your system, and then you can publish it to the cloud as soon as you get an internet connection later. So you're not limited by having no internet connection. It's not like, well, I missed my ticket. The plane took off and it's gone. I have to get on another flight. Not at all. Because it's the cloud, it doesn't have a ticket. There's no start and end time. You can pipe in whenever you want, and you could you could choose to publish all those clips at once or do them individually. It's totally up to you when that network comes on.
And it doesn't just have to be the WAV files or the audio files. It could be the sound report information too. So
exactly.
got access to it. Hey, should we live life on the edge?
Of course.
and try and do a demo of this.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes, I was just coming in. Paul and Michael are going to show like a little Frame.io demonstration while we're working here. If you guys have questions about what you've heard so far, go ahead and drop them. There's a little Q&A button at the bottom or just in the main chat, and then we'll get to those at the end. So you guys can filter in your questions while the demo is going on, okay?
Right, so let me we haven't even practiced this, so who knows what's going to happen. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch my camera here to look at the front panel of my Scorpio here, and I'm going to basically connect to a Frame.io project. And Michael's going to be like the sort of like production manager here. So he's going to invite me to the project, and we're going to talk through the process of getting authorization, that secure authorization into the project. And then once we're there, I'll just do a couple of quick short recordings. And Michael, who is absolutely nowhere near me, by the way, he's in Los Angeles and I'm here in Wisconsin. And so this is a demonstration of how it all works in real time across vast land masses. And then I think Michael might also demonstrate how you can have a second 8 series connected to the same project, uploading material too. So let's give that a go. I'm just going to switch my camera now, like so. All right, that's good.
Yeah, we see it. And I'm going to click on the Cloud Devices tab in my Frame.io account, and I can see that I have my camera attached. So the camera that we're shooting on is already linked to this project, but there's no audio.
Okay, so I'm going to go into my menu here, and I'm going to go to my Files menu, and there's a dedicated menu for Frame.io here. And as you can see immediately there, it says not connected. Let's see if I can zoom in a bit more. No, that's as far as I can go. Okay, so it's going to go in there. I can see here that I do have an internet connection, an IP address, which is connected to my local router here. My local router served that up. And what I'm going to do is just hit this connect toggle just here. So when I do this, and Michael now hits add new device.
So now I'm in Los Angeles and you can read me the code. Go for it. Okay,
now I've just been given a code, as you can see here. That happened virtually instantaneously. And the code is 635087. Now Michael's going to authorize that, hit the authorize button, and keep your eye on the 8 series here. Once that's connected, this message should change here. And there it is. Connection to Frame.io is now successful. It's as simple as that. And now I can come to my main menu. Let's just do a very quick recording here.
Hold on one sec. I'm going to name your device. I'm going to name it Paul's 888.
Well, it's a Scorpio, but don't worry about that.
Oh, sorry. Well.
And, so here we go. I'm just going to run a little recording here. Okay. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a Frame.io real-time test. And good night.
All right. So now in Los Angeles, if I go to my media tab, is today the 6th? Yeah, so we can see a folder generated for the 6th. If I click in that folder, well, I think it's brand new. So hang on, I got to hit refresh. There we go. So we go in there, an audio file, an audio folder is generated. So every day when you shoot, a new directory will start with the date. So you can see these are all different dates on a counter. So every shoot day, it automatically starts it on a shoot day. It shows my audio folder. If there was a video recording, it would have a video folder. And inside of audio, it shows Paul's 888. And so if I go into that folder,
click on the first one, the other one, that's it. There you go.
There we go. Now I'm going to play it so you can hear it.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a Frame.io real-time test.
There you go. So I now have the sound transmitted.
I was recording another take while that one was uploading, just to demonstrate that point. So if I'm if you keep manually refreshing, Michael, you'll see each of these files come in. I'm just going to literally split as we're going here. That's the nice thing about the 8 series. You don't actually have to stop the recording. I can be actually hitting record during record to create a new take with that seamlessly, which is great. So, and each of those splits will start to upload as soon as it's finished. So you might need to do another refresh.
There you go. Now we're seeing all the files populate. Yep.
Great.
Yeah, so very, very, very powerful solution here, and everything's coming in. And now we have 5 takes already transmitted, and they're in wave. Oh, these are AACs. You could do waves or AAC. It's totally up to you.
Yeah.
And now we support 16 channels. And here's what we can do. This is pretty cool. We've never tried this before, but what I can do is actually go to my 888. And I could go down to files for myself, and I have the opportunity. Now think about this. This is totally different. Now I'm going to sync my sound devices to the same project. So I get a code 935940. And now I'm authorizing a second sound devices. I get okay, and I hit finish. And I'm going to call this one MC. I'll call this MC 888. And now we've got my sound device and Paul. So if I were to hit record, so this is Michael's 888 recording a test, check 1, 2, 3, and I hit cut. I'm actually recording a wave file because if I go to my record setup here, I have my SD1 set to polyphonic wave. And then in my files menu, I've set my sound devices to Frame.io connection to be the SD card number 1. So if I go back into my media and I back up and I hit refresh, inside of audio, I now have 2 folders. So it's automatically organized, my directory and Paul's directory. So this is a very cool integration because now you can have multiple devices, whether they're in the same location or not, transmitting to the same project. And if they're transmitted to the same project, I can go inside of mine and get my audio assets here. It's a WAV file this time. Or as we saw before, I can go in Paul's and see the AACs. So we're both rolling to the same project, which I can then select a folder like this. And we talked about sharing it to rev.com. I saw Paul, or what was it? Someone asked the question. It was Thomas said, what about other metadata Rev can use for third-party services? Yes, you know, different services, Thomas, will have different situations with that. But in this case, Rev is an integration we already have, but others may be able to do it too. And I could share this audio folder and I could send this to whoever I want to actually transmit that. And I could do it over email. Oh, you can't see that, sorry. You could do it over email, or I could copy the link, or I could share it. I could text this link to whoever I wanted. These are all the ways to send everything that Paul and I did.
And Michael, just show in the Frame.io app how you have the ability to do things like rename takes and delete takes, move takes. So there's some pretty good file management handling there as well.
Right. If I wanted to rename something, I could easily do it here. I could change that information. If I wanted to share just one asset, I could share just one asset here or the whole thing. I could change the status of these things. So there's a lot of metadata you can apply to these values, and you can make circle takes and things like that. Or you could move these files to a different directory. So if you had another area you wanted to transfer them or copy them there. And the last thing you can do here, which is cool, is you could make it available offline. If someone was going to go on an airplane and wanted to listen and to all the material, they could just say make offline, and it would actually store that WAV file or an AAC. Hopefully you can see that directly to the phone. So now it becomes a local asset that they could capture as well.
Right. So, you know, there's a lot more about on the 8 series side. There's lots of extra functions related to the Frame.io, which I'm not going to go into now because actually we pushed out a video already, which is an in-depth tutorial on all the different upload modes, for instance, that you see here, and the upload drive and how you set up what format you want to upload, whether it's WAV, ISOs, mix, or AAC. All of that's there. So I'm not going to go into that now. One thing I do want to mention, once I've switched my camera back, is that, and people have asked this, is that can you run Dante and upload to Frame.io at the same time? And the simple answer is very much so, yes. With the 888, you would need to obviously have some sort of like switch, Ethernet switch, which is plugged into the RJ45 on the back, and then you could hook up to Dante devices and to your router to upload, or to a hotspot to upload. With the Scorpio, because you have 2 RJ45s, might not even necessarily need a switch.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just going to, and also obviously it's pretty obvious that the 833 doesn't support this because there's no Ethernet connection on that. That's been a common question, but yeah, this is super exciting. Anything else, Mike? We're sort of like in our last minute now. I could talk for absolutely ages on this, but anything to wrap up?
Yeah, Steve asked a really good question. What happens if I enter that code with a Scorpio? Oh, I'm getting an echo.
That's interesting.
Oh, is it because I just came back?
Oh, no problem. So he says, what happens if I enter that code in my Scorpio? So Steve, the actual code is only good for 120 seconds. And it shows the user which sound devices is connecting to the your account. So there's only a window for that. And you would not be able to connect to it because I would see a conflict. Frame.io would see a conflict. It's only going to let the door open for one device. And so that ensures, and it's only for a short window. So that's how we make sure that you wouldn't be able to see that code or guess that code. I guess you'd have to guess that code, which there are millions of combinations. You wouldn't know it. And if you did guess it in the window, I would see a conflict and I'd be like, oh, this isn't the right device. So you can control that as well. And Thomas says about swipe down and things like that. If you're on the web, it will, there's some updates coming out very shortly. You don't have to refresh as much. So on the app, you have to refresh right now. On the web, you do not. It just shows the asset on the web. So
yeah, it just comes in and there it is. It's fantastic.
Right.
So is there any other questions out there, Joe, that should be answered?
One from our friend John McCaleb. John McCaleb saying, if I let an Ethernet cable live in the socket on the 888, does it affect power consumption?
Yes.
There you go.
Because essentially the hatch is the power power enable for the whole Ethernet circuitry and Dante. So yes, it will.
Okay. Question from Joe Leo asking about other transcription companies, asking if it works with Otter and Transcript Associates out of New York. Is there any list of
Transcript Associates? I definitely know work with all the 8 series files. So if someone's shared these files from Frame.io directly to these companies, they can read those files, no problem. I know Transcript Associates, we've talked to them. They can read a time code out of our AAC files and WAV files, no problem. So,
okay. Question from Phil Bax. Can you protect files from renaming? He's saying it's potentially dangerous.
You can, basically people that have access to this, you can decide what their permissions are. And normally these are professionals working in the media and entertainment industry. They generally do not rename things, obviously, for that reason. So there are some precautions there, but there's also common sense. And I just want to show one last thing. We talked about AV sync, and I just want to show while we were just answering those questions, I rolled a take with the slate. And if you see, here's the video and audio folder. We've already looked at that. Here's all of Paul's audio assets. You can see them all there. Paul, if you roll a take real quick and just cut it real quick, you'll see that on the web, it will automatically update, and you'll see Paul rolls, Paul cuts, it updates. You see the file updates, it queues it, it transmits it, and there it's done. And so that quickly, that transfer happens automatically. And if I go back, I can also see this folder that essentially is, you refresh this. I can actually look at my AV sync where I was holding the slate. So I go to today's date, I go to AV sync, and now the AV sync folder has labeled it 1293A, which is Paul's or my asset. That was the asset I recorded. And you can see the time code at the bottom matches the time code on the slate.
Cool.
And so there's your transmission of audio and video sync. And if I go back to the video or the audio file inside of one of these files, you can see all of this metadata here is transmitted from the sound device's metadata field. So this is all information that if you enter, Frame.io sees that information and uses it to mux it with the video assets.
Very clever. Great work.
Together, you too. Great work together. Good teams.
Phenomenal. All right. Well, like I said, I could carry on talking about this all day, but we do have some other stuff to cover. So I'd really love to thank Michael for joining us. And it's always great chatting with you, Michael, and looking forward to evolve this whole thing with you and Frame.io.
Yeah, if you have questions, C2C @frame.io. You can email us, or my email is michael@frame.io. So we're happy to help.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
Take care.
All right. That was fun and awesome.
It was.
So great.
I think Michael's particularly excited about doing this thing between Los Angeles and Wisconsin.
Yeah, I Google mapped it real quick. It's 1,974 miles from.
Can you imagine getting your SD card on a motorbike?
Yeah.
How long that take?
All right. 8.0 is out.
Oh yeah.
Lots
Should we talk about some other cool stuff?
Yeah.
Why not?
Stuff.
Yeah.
The big ones here, channel copy, channel settings copy. Massive, often requested. CL16, extra colors. What else?
Bus naming.
Bus naming, also very hotly requested. So,
And some, as people will be staring at the screen of my 8 series right now, there's a nice new meter view there.
Oh, did you flip your?
Oh, let me turn my camera back on.
A wonderful face, Paul.
There you go.
There we are. So Paul is just going to take us real quick through the new stuff that's in 8.0. As always, you can drop your questions in there, and we'll circle back to those at the end. So I will let Paul take it away.
Yeah, so yeah, let's talk about the new copy channel settings feature, which is a very powerful feature, which enables setting up of numerous channels much, much quicker. And this has been due to popular demand. So just very quickly, I'm going to go into, say, channel 1 of my Scorpio here. And if you scroll down to this little file icon here, and press that, you enter the copy channel settings. So I'm in channel 1. So here I can choose which channels to copy this channel 1 settings to. And the nice thing about this is you can actually copy to more than one channel at the same time. I can copy to all 32 channels at the same time if I want to in one step. So that's really good. I can also choose which of the parameters to copy. So pretty much any of the channel setting parameters you can copy. So currently I've got EQ and compression, but I could select ISO routing, phase, pan, mute, limiter, what the source is, the name of the channel, the routing, the delay, and arm status. And then just simply hit the copy function, and it's copied within a millisecond or so. So that can be really useful for quick setups. If you happen to have something like a few common setups, I've been actually storing those in the higher channels that I very, very rarely use. So for instance, I've got a particular set of channel settings, which I store in channel 16 because I never use that. And then I can very quickly copy that to any of the other channels whenever I need it. So that's something to think about. So that's the copy channel settings. The other really nice feature we have introduced in version 8, and this is for CL16 users. And if I just bring the camera down and zoom out, you can see this rainbow style display. Let me just zoom out a bit more. So yeah, we have introduced channel colors, and this makes it really easy to identify a channel, not just by name now, because obviously you can display all the names along this bottom row for the channels, but to display them by color is really useful, especially if you're using something like a script application, such as scriptation, where you can match the colors on the actually used in the scriptation app with the colors that you're seeing on the channel. So it's a really quick way of visually mapping what actor you are controlling or want to control. You've got a great range of colors there. I think there's around 25, but let's just see how you set this up. So right now, I'm just going to do this from the CL16. I can press the menu button just here, and I go into my CL16 menu up here, come into there, and you will see a new menu called channel colors. You still have group colors for identifying different, when channels are grouped together, but this is additional channel colors. And then you've got all 32 channels listed here, and I can select any one and choose any of this long list of different colors. And basically we've tried to as closely match these colors to the default colors of the scriptation app, which I believe is one of the widest used apps for this purpose, if not the widest. So it's as easy as that. Okay, let's talk about another feature, which has been another high demand feature. And yes, we do listen. And for quite a while now, we've had the ability to name outputs, name the actual physical outputs, so that you know what you're sending where. But we haven't had the ability to name buses, which is also important because you might want a bus routed to multiple outputs. And to be able to name the bus, then it's much easier to identify what's being sent where. So let's just show you how to do that. And it's pretty straightforward. So just come into your menu and you scroll down to buses and you select a bus. Let's take a look at, say, bus 3 here. Now, I could just hit the name button here on the toggle switch on the star toggle. That's one way of doing it. It just brings up a keyboard and I can name there, or I can actually go straight into my bus screen. Now, as many of you know, there are many different types of shortcuts to go into these bus screens automatically. For instance, I can be on my CL16 down here and simply go into my bus menu and press like a bus, and it'll take me directly to the screen up here. All right, so let's go to bus 3 here, and I'm going to name this bus. I'm going to zoom in again a bit more. There you go. If I go to more and then I hit name, and now I can quickly add a name there. Let's just call that something like Boom 2. And away we go. So now that name is shown at the top of the bus screen here. It's also shown in all the different meter views that have buses in them. So if I look at this bus view here, I can see actually that I need to be on a different bus view here to see that. Let's have a look at this bus view here. So I've just named bus 3 here, Boom 2, there it is. And also that will show up in on my CL16 as well. So in my bus menu, in my bus screen here, where I'm showing buses, I can see the bus there as well. And I can still see my output naming as well. So the CL16 is a really awesome place to see the names of all your outputs, all your buses, and all your channels in one place. So now, one thing that's important to know is because buses L are your 2 main buses and B1 and B2 are recordable, we've also ensured that any naming you perform to buses from anywhere in the user interface is also reflected as metadata in those recorded bus tracks, LR, B1 and B2. So that's very important to ensure that. Okay, so that's bus naming. A few other nice little additions too. We've now allowed the ability to route any bus at all to outputs left and right. So if I go to left and right, I can now see here that I can select any bus for those outputs, not just the left and right bus. So that gives a much greater flexibility there. Okay, and let's just talk about meter views, which you've been looking at the whole time. In fact, if I go back to this is one of the new meter views, the highly requested, and I think this is as real interest, especially to 833 users who oftentimes don't actually need to record more than 3 ISOs. So to have a nice screen here with some really fat meters for just ISOs 1 through 3 and your left mix is really nice. And you can see there that you can still get to see your Dugan metering and any noise suppression metering as well there. We've also brought a few more other metering views over from the 833 to the 888 and Scorpio as well. So please investigate that. And that is essentially it. I think it's a really nice update. There's been a bunch of bug fixes as well, and just a few small improvements based on user feedback. For instance, now when you do a false take, you don't need to go select OK. It's already highlighted, and you can just get rid of that false take, allocate a false take immediately without any delay. So a few little tweaks like that to improve things. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I highly recommend trying version 8 out. And yeah, is there any questions, Joe?
Just the one from our friend Jim Keeney, who says, is 8.0 safe? Yes. Saw some Facebook groups listing bugs. Should we be factory resetting and rebuilding presets after firmware updates?
It shouldn't be necessary to do that, but I personally do that because I always like to start with a clean slate, but it shouldn't be necessary to do that. I think it's, these are very, very complex machines with so many settings and so many variables that when you go from an older version of firmware to a brand new big firmware update, I think it sometimes is good for your own clarity to to reset and do those things. Absolutely no harm in doing that. And it just gives you a good starting point to start off from. But it shouldn't be necessary. We are aware that there's been a few little concerns regarding version 8, which we're looking at now. And but there's absolutely no risk in moving to version 8.
Okay. Any other final questions? Anybody? Okay. A few relevant Frame.io links are in the chat. You can find them there. Also, I posted our video that we did for the release with Paul. He goes through the entire workflow using an 888 and shows off, the mobile workflow as well as the desktop. So check that out if you haven't seen it yet. Do anything else? Any last minute? Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was really
thanks
fun.
a lot.
Lots of really good stuff in sorry, one last minute question from Paul. There's still a problem with channel naming. DSP is still DSF. Is it a missing pixel, Paul? Is that what you're saying? Let's see what Paul has to say. Is that an issue? DSP is showing DS.
What was the question? Is that still an issue? Or
yeah, he said channel naming.
Is it still an issue? Is that what he said? Or is he asking the question whether it's still an issue?
He said it was still an issue, I believe. Sorry, double check. Yeah, he's saying there is still a problem with channel naming, that DSP is still showing as DSF.
Ooh, that's really weird. Yeah, we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, we'll double check that just to make sure.
That's a very esoteric.
It is, yeah. Oh, in the sound report, it is DSP. Okay. I'll copy that out. Yeah, we'll make sure that we get someone checking up on that for you. Okay.
Anything else?
I don't believe so.
Thanks everyone for tuning in and tuning in to hear about Frame.io, and really highly recommend running some test workflows for yourself with that, because I think once you start to see it in use, it's sort of like it opens your eyes to what's possible. So all right, well, thanks again.
All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.